I'm excited to introduce Alison Smith, Director of Generative AI at consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton. Alison oversees her company's investments in generative AI with a focus on real business needs.
So first, we have this timeline. And the reason I wanted to do this kind of contextual timeline is because we're so excited about generative AI today that we feel like it's taken everything by storm. And really, it's a culmination of various technological innovation that over time, or usually, were open source. And so some of the building blocks of the generative AI systems you see today largely rely on open source technologies. So next, I want to talk a little bit about large language model history. This is an evolutionary tree that is fantastic. I think that illustrates what's going on with the various generative models. At the very bottom, you see the original kind of OGs, which were Word2Vec and Glove back in 2013 and 2014. These were, at the time, considered really large. They captured semantic and syntactic information in these vectors, right? And everyone was sort of, their minds were blown by how effective they were. And it might kind of make you wonder, like, what's going on here? What is this trend in becoming increasingly closed? And I want to take it back to discussing open source generally. What are the roots of open source, really? And the roots are in software, and what are its benefits, right? Open source's definition extends way beyond just making the source code available. It allows for free distribution. It also allows for derivative works. What we're seeing today is now a spectrum. It's not what we traditionally understand as open source in software. It's a little bit different. And so this spectrum here, you see that fully open is as open as you're going to see the models, all the way to fully closed. And there's some key considerations that have trade-offs, right? So when a model is very open, it tends to have a larger community of research. You're going to reach broader perspectives and have more people contributing. And so the reason I wanted to lay out the slides this way before having a conversation with Will is to kind of reframe the discussion away from, are you pro open source or against open source? And really think more about, what benefits did open source software give us, right, over time? And given those benefits, can we somehow realize similar benefits in AI and generative AI?
Can we characterize that middle ground between good and bad a bit better? I mean, what kinds of mitigations are we talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you're already seeing a lot of conversation around responsible AI and thinking through safety and guardrails. And even with some of the commercially available products today, there are guardrails that do prevent you from doing things that are very explicitly dangerous, right? And I think that's the first step. And seeing how policymakers are definitely interested in this and how to shape responsible AI, I think that is probably the first step to a middle ground. Rather than having any closed models, it's to create some guardrails.
It's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Like, do we need to put these models out there into the world knowing that they have potential harms in order to discover those harms?
To some degree, yes. But I think in addition to the guardrails, there are ways to think about these models. Yes, they are built in a way that can be general purpose, but you can deploy them in very use case specific environments to hopefully narrow that scope of usage, where you can test out some of the vulnerabilities as well as the risks within that narrow use case.
I introduced this section by saying that open source is sort of crucial for the healthy future of this technology, which is sort of vibe I've had from talking to you in the past and from others. Not to make it sort of too existential about the well-being of the technology, but maybe give us a sense of what's at stake.
I do think that many of these companies, though, benefit from open source as well. Earlier in that timeline, I was showing that TensorFlow and PyTorch, which were by Google and now Meta, they open source these libraries because it basically sets a standard for future development that they can then bring back into their own ecosystem and then inspire other products.